For the person growing fruit trees in their backyard or front yard or wherever, wintertime represents a terrific opportunity, especially for deciduous trees like these. You can come through and you can do your winter pruning. You can go through and clean up stuff in your orchard that's fallen by the wayside in the hustle and bustle of harvesting during the summer and the fall. But then you start looking at what kind of plants and trees maybe you want to plant in the springtime, and you're usually confronted with two choices: bare root trees and potted trees. I'm Cameron, welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. In this video, I'm going to walk through some of the differences between bare root trees and fully potted trees so that way you can pick the right plant for you. Let's get busy. Now would be a fantastic time to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. And if you're not already a Busy Gardener member, why don't you check that out? Hit the join button below and see what kind of perks. There might be something that works for you. And before this video goes on any further, why don't you let me know in the comments below what fruit trees you're planning on planting this spring. I've got maybe another citrus that I'm planting. I've got to replace 3 apples that died. And so I'd be curious to hear, let's compare notes. What are you planting? When you set out to buy a fruit tree, a lot of times you'll go to a local nursery or garden center and you'll see a tree sitting in a pot and you think, hey, I want that apple tree in that pot to go in the ground in my yard. And so then you'll buy it and you'll come home and you'll plant it and life will go on happily ever after. But there is another option, and that is buying bare root trees. So what is a bare root tree? Bare root tree is exactly what it sounds like. It's a tree whose roots are bare. And so I've pulled this little weed out to be able to demonstrate what that looks like. A bare root tree is one where the nurserymen will grow a bunch of the same kind of tree or different trees or whatever it is right next to each other, deciduous trees, and they'll grow them really close. And then what happens is when those trees go dormant and all the tree systems shut down, they will take and they will dig all of those trees up, they'll dust off the dirt, they'll put them all together, they'll bind them up in their warehouse, and they'll send them off to nurseries around the country, to online nurseries and in-person nurseries, brick and mortar. And then what happens is one of two things. Those nurseries will either take that tree and they'll put it in a pot like I have here, where they'll take soil and they'll put it in there and they'll begin babying that tree to give that tree a chance to establish itself. Maybe it starts leafing out, and so that tree already has some soil. But the other is they will make those trees available to you as a bare root tree. And that's just like what I found at Home Depot. Today when I was there earlier, I saw that they had a bunch of bare root trees available. A lot of times you won't find them in a pot, you'll find them in like a bag with sawdust in it or something like that, where they're able to keep some moisture there. But it's kind of an interesting thing. These trees, they go into the suspended animation and they don't even realize what's happening to them. They went dormant while they were in the ground in soil. And when they wake up and they happen to be in your garden or orchard, they're in soil again. They don't even know that anything happened. Now, there are some pros and a major reason why people will prefer to get a bare root tree. The first and probably biggest reason why people like to buy bare root trees, and why probably a third or maybe half of this entire orchard were purchased from bare root trees, is that the cost per tree is way lower than buying an established one in a pot. And that really boils down to the amount of labor and materials it takes to make a bare root tree. They're really doing the bare minimum needed to get that tree to you. So rather than taking and having to send it and to put it into a pot with the materials and make sure that that tree is alive and thriving before you come and buy it, all they're doing is taking that thing out of the ground and expecting that you're going to take and do the heavy lifting. So they're getting that tree to you and expecting that you're going to quickly plant it. But as a result, there are a lot less labor and material costs involved. And so you can buy bare root tree for sometimes 30, 50% off what you would getting that identical tree if it were already potted at a nursery. A second reason why people often like bare root trees is that bare root trees can be shipped really easily. So if you're buying from, let's say, an online nursery and they've got some bare root trees available, you're able to get cultivars and varieties you wouldn't be able to find locally, or maybe they just don't happen to have them locally, but they are able to ship them to you. And it's wonderful to ship a bare root tree because you're not paying for them to ship you soil, you're paying for really just them to ship you a tree. And so that's another reason why bare root trees are a fantastic option for the home grower. Another reason why bare root trees can often be a great option for somebody is because bare root trees, when they dig them out of the ground, they're pruning off maybe a little bit of the rooting, but they're really sending you with a lot of the root system intact, versus when they're having to fit all of those roots inside this container. So they're having to make those cuts to make it fit in here. And so you're losing a lot of that rooting area. And so a bare root tree can often surpass one that's already in a pot because it has more of its system in place and it's able to just take off from there. Now, there are some downsides when it comes to buying a bare root tree. First of which is you're not able to get trees when they're out of dormancy. You can really only buy bare root trees when they're dormant, and so that's going to necessarily limit things like this orange over here, any subtropicals, anything like avocado or citrus. Anything that retains its leaves the whole time is not going to work as a bare root because those systems are always active even if they kind of go through a slump. Another reason why bare root trees are not a great option is because if you're not catching that tree during dormancy, you're really not able to buy it as a bare root. I mean, all of these nectarines and peaches and apples and jujube all have to be dormant in order to be shipped and sold as a bare root tree. Otherwise, you're going to be paying the amount that it is for a potted tree. The final reason why it might make sense for you to buy a potted tree over a bare root tree is that a potted tree just comes with some sense of security. When you get a bare root tree, it looks pretty rough. It's got no leaves, it's got nothing on the roots, it's just a stick. It looks like when you pull a dead one out of the ground. And so it's really hard to tell, and so you don't always have the same level of peace of mind as you do when you buy something in a pot. So if that's important to you, then you're going to want to stick with a potted tree. Well, I hope this has given you at least another angle of attack for tackling this gardening thing and getting fruit trees that might be a little bit less expensive, give you a few more options. It's not right for everybody, but it might be right for you. Well, anyway, appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the Busy Gardener channel. And whether you've got one bare root tree to plant or 500, till next time, stay busy.